Hey there, writers. If you haven't been to my channel before, my name's Emma and I write contemporary romance. I'm based in the UK. Today on my channel, I was wanting to talk about some news which could potentially be very, very good for a lot of authors. So unless you have been living under a stone for the last couple of months as an author, you will no doubt have heard about what the company Meta have been getting up to with their AI training. So Meta is, of course, the company which owns Facebook and Instagram. And it turns out that in order to train their AI, which obviously they need to do, but they have been using works without paying for them, basically. So in effect, they have been stealing work from writers. There was a link that you were able to go to a while ago. I'm guessing that that's still something that you can do, where you are able to see whether your books have been used by them. So 3 out of my 15 books have been used by the company without my permission to train the AI, and many authors are in the same position, and I think it's quite natural that we are very angry. And let's face it, writers in general, we're quite a chilled bunch. We want to be left alone. We want to, stay at home and write our books. It takes quite a lot to get us rattled up to the extent that there was a large show of force about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where a whole load of writers went down to the Meta headquarters in London as a protest and to deliver a letter to the big bosses there. All they wanted to do was to have 2 people go in to present this letter, but they had the doors locked on them and they weren't able to do that. So hopefully they did manage to get the letter delivered in the end. But anyway, my point being is that there's a lot of people who were very cross about this. But I did actually see that there's potentially some good news on the horizon. So lots and lots of writers have been contacting people like their MPs to try to get some help with this issue. And I've done that. I've also taken part in some surveys about it and basically trying to come up with some ideas to help this situation, because what Meta says, and I guess there is some truth to this, is that they couldn't possibly contact every writer whose work they are using. Now, I don't think that that's fair, but I can understand that if they are using millions of books to train the AI, yeah, okay, getting in touch with all of the authors of those books would be very difficult. But UK licensing bodies, it seems, have been doing a pretty good job at kind of coming up with some alternatives. So the UK government, first of all, proposed an opt-out system whereby when you publish a book, basically you put some kind of amendment, like on the copyright page, to say that it cannot be used to train AI. I don't know. I didn't completely love that idea. I'm not quite sure how it would work in effect, because the companies would presumably be needing to would there be a register? Yeah, I was being silly. I was actually thinking that maybe the AI companies would have to check each book, but thinking about it logically, there would be some kind of register and they'd look it up, and I guess they could automate that. But yeah, but what these licensing agencies have come up with actually sounds a bit better. So what they've suggested is a collective license. So basically, any authors who are happy for their work to be used to train AI, their work kind of comes under this collective license, and so they will actually be paid by the companies, it's going to be the first of its kind in the UK. And I don't believe that they've actually got this far with negotiations in the US, but I could be wrong about that. But what's really great is that this is moving forward so quickly that this could actually be a viable option and something that authors can decide if they want to be part of as soon as the summer of this year, which is just amazing, because I would have thought that something like that would have been a huge project, and initially I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be years. What do we do in the meantime? So it is really good that it's potentially coming together so quickly. And it does actually seem to be what people want. When the Authors Licensing and Collecting Society did a survey of authors, 81% of them said that they would want to be part of a collective license like this. So it's great that it seems that the people are listening to what authors actually want to do with their work. And of course, you would still have the choice not to be part of this collective license if you didn't want. And presumably in that case, the AI companies would not be allowed to use your books for their training. Of course, as it's in such early stages, there isn't any news on how much authors can be expected to be paid for their work. So that'll be very interesting because in the UK, at least, for example, when your book is borrowed from a library, from a public library, you get a few pence each time it's borrowed, but presumably the AI companies would just be paying a one-off price. And if they're using millions of books, that's going to end up being very pricey. I mean, not that they can't afford it. These companies are worth billions and billions, like the kind of money that it's not really possible for us to fully understand, I don't think, because it's so big and so outside of the realms of what most of us at least deal with in our everyday lives. But I do think it's very, very good that this is being taken so seriously, that writers are standing together, that we are complaining, that we are writing to people, that we are taking part in consultations, and that government are discussing it, and that the licensing committees are coming up with different solutions which will at least help the problem, even if, as will probably happen, it's not something that everybody will be happy with. I'm sure that there'll be people who won't be happy with the amount of remuneration that they receive, or the kind of barriers that are being put on the companies to make sure that they don't use any work which they haven't paid the collective license for. But I do think that it's a good step in the right direction, and it's really nice to see that it's moving forward fairly quickly anyway. So thank you for joining me for this video today. I hope that it's been useful to you, and if you have any thoughts on this topic at all, please pop them down in the comments below. It would be really lovely to hear what you think, and I will catch you in the next one.